for anything that you might come across in your own environment as well. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to be going over a brief introduction to Meraki and also taking you through a couple of questions about why cloud networking might be an interesting solution for your own environment. And then what we really want to do is spend the majority of our time talking with Clint and Mike about their deployment and doing some live demos of the Cisco Meraki environment to demonstrate a live network and an MX deployed in our own environment here, and then some time for Q&A at the end. So with that said, I also wanted to point out some really exciting news. We are going to be giving out free 802.11n access point to the qualified IT professionals on the line. And that is an 802.11n access point, and it comes with a 3-year cloud management license. And all that you need to do is go ahead and call us and confirm your shipping information. So you should have received a reminder email before the webinar today. Go ahead and give that person a call, and we'll go ahead and get the access point right out to you. All right, with that said, I want to take a second to talk a little bit about Cisco Meraki for those of you who are less familiar. So Cisco Meraki is 100% cloud managed networking. So we have complete line of wireless products as well as switches, security appliances, and also mobile device management, all of which are centrally managed over the web. So instead of logging in to each device directly or logging into the CLI to actually make configuration changes and monitor that device, we use what we call the dashboard to centrally manage all of these devices from one pane of glass. So we're going to be demoing to you today this dashboard and how it actually works with the hardware. So Cisco Meraki is the leader in cloud networking. We've been operating in the cloud since about 2006. So we've had a lot of time to iterate over this technology and continue to improve the feature set and also build out new features. And we've been recognized for innovation by Gartner World for the Magic Quadrant, as well as InfoWorld and CRN as one of the coolest technologies out there. But more importantly than that, we are trusted day in and day out by thousands of customers worldwide. There's a few of them here at the bottom of the screen, but we also have a few other specific organizations here that are K through 12 campuses where we are deployed, and there's just a few of them as well here. So just a quick overview of the cloud management portfolio that we're going to be talking about today. As I mentioned, we have wireless access points on the bottom left here. We also have MX security appliances, and this is really what we're going to be focusing on today, as the security appliances. But if you have questions on other products, definitely feel free to ask them as well. We also have MS Ethernet switches, and these are access layer switches as well as aggregation 10 gigabit switches. And on the far right, our mobile device management platform called Systems Manager. And so as opposed to the 3 other products on the left, this platform is specifically for managing end client devices. So iOS devices, your iPhones, iPads, Android devices, for instance. And these devices will communicate directly to the cloud so that you can manage actual end clients wherever they are connected to the internet. So all of these 4 platforms have one thing in common, though, and that is the centralized management platform. So at the center of the screen here, we're looking at the dashboard, and it is a web-based management platform so that you can go in and check on all of these devices across a very distributed network, which is what we're going to be looking at today with Region 9 specifically. So I wanted to take a second and talk a little bit about the cloud networking architecture, as this might be new to some of you. So if we take a look here, this is that super high level view of how your network might look if you are deploying cloud managed technology. If you look at the bottom center of the screen here, we have the actual hardware itself. And this could be at your headquarters or also at your home office or teleworker office, so any number of locations. But those devices are actually on site, and they're going to be communicating to the cloud. And so they're going to be communicating things like their status, if they're up or down, and also information about what they're seeing in that environment, what type of traffic they're seeing, how much throughput. So all sorts of status information is communicated to the cloud. And then you as the administrator can log in via the web, and that's what we're looking at on the left here, that web dashboard. You can log into the cloud and get this information aggregated for you. So that's what we'll be demoing today, and you'll be able to see up-down status of devices, but much, much more than that, actually getting this deep visibility into what's going on in the network. And at the same time, you can use the dashboard to make configuration changes across one device or many devices in your network. So I want to take 1 second to talk about the what is actually happening when those devices are communicating to the cloud. So if you look at the the left-hand side of our screen, we have a diagram showing our access point, our switch, or security appliance, the MX firewall, and content filtering device, and those devices are communicating to the cloud. But it's important to note that they're actually only communicating management data. So that's that dotted blue line, and it's about 1 kilobit per second per device average. But it's also important to note that the actual traffic itself doesn't ever traverse to the cloud. So it's either going to stay locally on your own LAN or go directly to its destination somewhere else on the WAN. So we call this our out-of-band cloud management platform. And this type of architecture allows us several benefits for your own environments. One is that it's extremely secure. We're not actually passing that user traffic through the cloud. So it allows us to be fully HIPAA compliant and also PCI compliant as well. It's also very reliable. We have multiple data centers around the world, and we have a 99.99% uptime SLA for communication to those data centers. But we also get a lot of questions about what happens if, for instance, your internet connection goes down. Do devices still function? Can users still pass traffic? And the answer is yes. They obviously won't be able to reach the internet because that's the problem we're encountering. But the devices are going to actually keep their configuration locally as well as in the cloud. So they will still be able to pass traffic. Access points can still authenticate new users, assuming you have a local authentication server. Switches will still switch traffic, and so forth. So all of these devices continue to function even if they're not constantly communicating with the cloud. And as soon as that internet connection is resumed, all of that, the updates will be sent to the cloud, as well as any configuration changes that you had made in the cloud. Those would go ahead and be pushed out to the devices at that time. Another thing to note, some people ask, well, can you make configuration changes locally to the devices instead of using the dashboard? And the answer is yes. You can make some local configuration changes, and that's mainly to regain internet connectivity, and all the major configuration will be done in the cloud. All right, with that said, I'm actually going to take a second and give you a brief tour of the dashboard before we start talking to Clint and Mike about their own deployment, just so you're a little bit familiar with the solution as we start to go over some specific examples. So I've actually gone ahead and logged in before we began to the Cisco Meraki Corp network. So let me just refresh to make sure I'm still logged in here. So as you can see, I'm on a web page, and here I've logged in, and I'm at the overview page of our live Cisco Meraki network. So these are all of our Cisco Meraki offices around the world. You'll see here on the right, we have 53 different networks that we're actually monitoring. And I can expand this out to find a little bit more about any of these networks. We have some wireless networks as well as MX security appliance networks, some teleworker networks that are deployed, and then we can actually sort by any of these. Here we can sort for the top usage, and here we have our Meraki Corp network. This is actually the office that I'm in right now in San Francisco. So I can very easily click into this network, and now I'm looking at this one specific site. So for instance, if we look at our wireless network, here I can get a view of our floor plan. I can see all of the access points that are deployed. And I can see instantly that everything is up and running. All of these are green. None of the access points are red or gray to indicate that there would be a problem. And I can also start to get a sense of what's happening with these devices. Here I'm looking at the number on these shields is telling me how many current clients are connected. So here, 16 clients connected to this access point, or 5 on this access point. And I can easily click into any one of these and now look at information just related to this one access point. So here I can see where it is in the environment in relation to its neighbors. I can also see information about the serial number, which SSIDs it's currently broadcasting, which one it's not broadcasting, so it's not broadcasting our engineering SSID. And here, information about LAN information, also which channels we're broadcasting on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And also, as this is integrated with our switch platform, here I can see on my Ethernet uplink, I'm connected on port 36 of this particular switch. And you'll see on the left here that I can actually access switch data from the same dashboard view. So here, if I click on port 36, it'll actually take me over. Now I'm looking at this switch information and find out everything I wanted to know about port 36 of this switch. So it makes troubleshooting really easy. Also, one of my favorite features of the Cisco Meraki product line is this feature called Layer 7 Application and Client Visibility. And so here, if we look in the live tools, this is where we can get information about for troubleshooting and also dive a little deeper into what's happening with this device. So here I can see the 2 clients that are currently connected to this access point. And here are those 2 clients. But you'll notice that it's not simply the MAC address or the IP address. We're actually looking at host names or computer names of these devices that are connecting. So we're actually listening to the traffic that's passing through the access point and picking up identifying information about the clients that are connecting. So this is a pretty powerful solution for BYOD type of environments where you have unknown devices connecting to your network. Here you can very easily identify them and then classify them into their various subgroups. So here I can click on one of these devices. Here this is Quinn Stewart. And here I can see where she's located in the building. I can also see how we learned the host name here based on the 802.1x login. But we can also see everything else we've learned about this device. It's an Intel Windows 7 device. It has 802.11n capabilities, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And also we can see exactly which applications are being used. So not a lot of activity on this computer. Let's look at a different client device. Here's a different one. Here now we're looking at an Intel Windows 7 device. And now we can look at what the traffic usage is like on this device. So let's look at over the last day, or maybe the last week, and a huge spike here. So actually that might be something interesting to investigate. But here we have about 5 gigabytes of miscellaneous web traffic, but also we're seeing some Gmail, HTTPS, UDP traffic. So we can very easily start to understand how this client device is actually using the network. And I can actually take a look a little bit deeper at what specifically those destinations are for this one client. So here are some of those destinations. I can see exactly what that application is that's using 29% of the usage, and also some of the other destinations. So you'll see some of them are grayed out. That's because I'm not the overall administrator, but the administrator would be able to see all of these destinations. So this is interesting to get information about how one single client is using the network, but we can also get the same type of information for our entire wireless network or our switch network or our security appliance network. So since we were talking about access points, I'll go ahead and continue with this example. Here we can look at our access point traffic over the last week. And since we're in an office here, we can see that this looks kind of like what we'd expect. It spikes up during the day and drops off in the evening, and really dropped off over the weekend here. And then we can see those 800 different clients that have connected over the last week. You can very easily search for any specific device, maybe a Windows device, and we have 252 matches, or a specific manufacturer, Samsung devices, and you can even see which traffic is associated with those Samsung devices. Or you can search by usernames. So Rachel is here with me. So here I can search for her device, and here is her MacBook Pro. And it's online right now. And on the right, we can actually see exactly what applications are being used. And I can expand this out to get more detail about exactly how my network is being used. And we're going to talk a lot with Clint and Mike about how they're able to use this information in their own environment. So here we can see the top applications that are being used in the Cisco Meraki environment. Here we have some secure web traffic. Dropbox is quite high. iTunes, and we'll continue on down. We'll start to see some more recreational type of applications as well, like Pandora or YouTube. And we can click into any one of these and find out who our top YouTube users are, and see exactly which clients are contributing to that rule and what the YouTube traffic looks like over the last week. So some pretty fine-grained information about what's happening in your network. And you can take this and create traffic shaping rules and layer 7 firewall rules in order to really tune how your network is being used. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But I want to go ahead and take this time now to introduce Clint Close and Mike Campbell, who are on the line and going to share with us some information about their own deployment. So Clint and Mike, are you there?
We are. Yes, absolutely.
All right, excellent. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Region 9 Education Service Center?
Well, I'm Mike Campbell, and been with Region 9 about 20 years, and we've kind of watched this network grow over the years. We've got 38 school districts that we serve right now, and we have a wide variety of connectivity out to our schools, everything from a T1 line all the way up to gig fiber, and everything in between, including wireless and several different options. Obviously, what we serve primarily are rural school districts, and in our most rural school districts, the bandwidth is a real commodity. It is something that is in short supply. So whenever we connect a school to the internet through us, by the way, we are a service center. We're not a school district, but we provide service to the school districts. We are a state agency. So when we connect them to the internet, we really have to make sure that what they're using is educationally appropriate, that it has something to do with their mission. So we have always provided some type of content filtering, as well as try to attempt to provide bandwidth shaping as well. And so when we found the Meraki could do both, that was pretty exciting with one device. In the past, what we've had to do is manage several different devices, and that gets somewhat awkward, I guess, at times. But we find that our schools really appreciate it. We have probably much fewer calls as far as opening or closing devices. Our websites in our content filter, they have the ability to do that themselves, and I think they like that for the most part. Not everyone does it. They prefer that we do it in some cases. So it's a wide variety of expertise in our schools as well. We have everyone from some schools have multiple staff for tech support, while others it's the second grade teach their tech support, all the way from the custodian to the superintendent. So a wide range of expertise as far as how that works. So we found that if you can make it as easy as possible, that's always been a plus.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that that overview, and we're going to definitely dig into some of the points that you mentioned. I wanted to take 1 second to just give a brief dashboard overview of the Region 9 Service Center network, and here's just some of the schools that you're managing. And you can see on the right here, you're actually looking at 36 different networks that you guys are managing here, and actually I think 38 total, so it might be broken out and organized more further than just this one screenshot here.
Yes, we had to put some of them in different organizations. just because they had other things on their network, and it just worked better that way.
Yeah, excellent. So you talked a little bit already about providing internet connectivity through Internet 2 and TETN plus. So you're providing internet connectivity, but you have some really unique needs as well, as you're mentioning content filtering and also how you were providing that content filtering. So can you talk a little bit about how you were providing content filtering centrally originally, and then deciding to move that to a more distributed solution where you're actually putting MX security appliances at each site and then managing each of those for all of the school districts?
We've had a Cisco 7606 router with a virtual firewall service module in it that provided the firewall protection, and then we used WebSense. I guess we were one of the original customers of WebSense, and it worked well with the PIX firewall. The problem was, as our bandwidth needs grew, we basically outgrew the firewall service module, and also the WebSense was so doggone expensive. So we started looking for other alternatives. We wanted to stay with a centralized management because as we talked about earlier, you have such a wide diversity of expertise out in the districts. But it finally came to a point where, as a result of the cloud management, we were able to move our devices out to the edge, which made it good from two standpoints. Number one, the schools actually got to see a box at their site that they recognized as being part of our service. And then as a result of the fact that it's in the cloud, we all have the same access to their equipment. So that made it a whole lot easier and really made the decision a lot easier as well.
And one other thing that provided is, in the past, they were kind of locked into which service providers that they could use. They could either go to us or they could go to another service provider. But with the Meraki solution, we're able to use multiple internet ports on the Meraki MX appliance. And so they can have a connection back to us, and then they can have a secondary connection for just to add more bandwidth to the Meraki. And all of it's contained in that one box, and everything's managed within that one device, which we've had quite a few of our rural schools that only have the option of adding multiple T1s. They might have a local provider that can provide some fiber or DSL connectivity that has helped them, I think, quite a bit.
That's great. So yeah, let me just actually go ahead and show that in the Meraki security appliance, what you guys are talking about with the multiple redundant connections to the internet. So here we have the Meraki Corp network, and this is our security appliance. And you'll see the two internet port uplinks here. And so you'll actually see them light up here as well, WAN 1 and WAN 2. And what they're talking about is here you can actually have the one connection directly back to the Region 9 service center, but then also have a second connection to a different service provider so that you can actually have both of those going at the same time, redundant, and then also you would still have that content filtering right here at the MX security appliance as well. So that makes a lot of sense. Is that exactly what you're talking about?
That's it exactly.
Great. All right, so let's see. We talked a little bit already about what the features were that you're interested in with the MX security appliance. I want to take a second and talk about basically how you're actually using the security appliance for reporting and understanding if there are problems at the various sites, and then how you're actually able to address those remotely, and some of the issues that you have run into, and maybe the MX has helped streamline somewhat for you.
Sure. We get calls from time to time, and I'm sure as everybody does, and they ask if the internet's down or, why is the internet so slow? And before, we had some tools that we could go in and identify those problems, but I'd say, would you agree, Mike, that it took much more time to identify what a problem was? And Go ahead.
Well, really and truly, yeah, because we had to go into the 7606. Number one is the T1 up or down. Uh, you know, it is most often it was they'd utilized all their bandwidth. Was probably the most common thing because they were trying to, run videos across a T1 line or uh, which would just cripple it. And so that was a quick way to find out exactly what was going on with the network, and we could advise them on how to handle it at that point.
And like for instance, I had a person at a school call last week actually, and they said that their internet was terrible. It was slow. They couldn't access anything. They had a bunch of kids in the lab, and they were all trying to log into one site and do something in the class. And so we logged into the dashboard and started looking at the highest users and what bandwidth was being used and how it was being used. And we could tell, number one, that Carbonite was using a tremendous amount of their bandwidth at that point in time. At 9:45, it just basically consumed most of it. And so they had inadvertently not realized that they had scheduled their backup for 9:45 a.m. instead of p.m. And so they were able to turn that off, and that fixed that. But there was also a student that had connected his tablet to the wireless network, an unsecured wireless access point, which we were able to identify that as well. And that student was actually in the class, and he was just hammering away at iTunes, downloading games or music, I don't know. And so we were able to remedy those two things, and as soon as we did, everything's up, and the network's happy again, and the users are happy.
That's excellent. I like that story a lot. Um, just for everyone on the phone, I want to kind of show how you would identify those things that Mike and Clint are talking about here, and you'd be able to use this clients page just like we looked at for the wireless network, and now look at the appliance clients as well. So everything that's connected through the security appliance, and basically all the traffic is going through this device. So we'd be able to see all of the clients in the network, and you'd be able to really easily identify exactly what was causing those spikes in the network. And so here you could find those clients, identify them, and is this where you found the access point as well?
Yes, I believe so.
That's great. So taking that a step further, you mentioned how you were able to identify this information, but you can also use the security appliance to create layer 7 firewall rules and traffic shaping rules to teach or help the schools manage their own bandwidth, because they do have limited bandwidth in some cases. Can you talk a little bit about how you use the security appliance for that use case?
Certainly, and we also use the Active Directory integration with that as well. And so what that allows is so we can set up the teachers um, Active Directory group. In that, we can set up a group inside of the MX appliance also. And so say we want the teachers to be able to get to YouTube with full bandwidth, and we want the students to either not get to YouTube or to be able to get to YouTube, but with less bandwidth. All that's available within the group policies inside the MX appliance. And that's worked really well at all of our sites.
That's excellent. Right, so here I'm on the group policy page. So we have a number of group policies here in our own network. But if I were to create a new one, you could just create a new group policy, and you could sync this with your Active Directory groups. Um, and then here you can create custom layer 3 firewall rules, layer 7 firewall rules, and also traffic shaping rules specifically for each one of these groups. So here I can create a firewall rule. I can also create a layer 7 firewall rule. So these categories are automatically imported from the cloud. So here I can say I want to maybe block all Netflix traffic. And simple as that, it'll be blocked for this user group. Same thing here with traffic shaping. Maybe I don't want to completely block all Netflix traffic. I simply want to limit it. Here I can limit down that bandwidth for 250 kilobits per second for each device. You can also set a global bandwidth rule here for this policy. And then you can also apply these on a time basis. So here, if you want to maybe deny Netflix during the day, but then allow it in the evening, you can also do that here as well through the group policy. So the group policies, you can set time-based rules for them as well. So pretty powerful.
We also a video service where kids or students are able to take college classes and basically do a video conference anywhere in the world. And that's a big deal for us. And in the past, we haven't had a good, affordable solution to be able to prioritize that traffic and make sure that it gets priority over everything else. That traffic and as well a database that we host for all the schools. And we'd had different schools say, well, it's slow, and we go look, and all we can really tell them before is, yeah, your T1's full or your bandwidth is being consumed. And we didn't have any real fix for it. But now we're able to prioritize and give that a higher priority over all the other traffic. And so we make sure that all of the students that are taking classes, that's the best quality it can be, and that database that's hosted, we can make sure that everybody's paychecks get processed.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really good point. We definitely talked about limiting traffic, but we can also prioritize traffic as well. So here I can just go in and create a new traffic shaping rule, and here you can once again select a category or create a custom type of traffic, so based on a host name or IP address. So maybe if you are wanting to make sure some sort of streaming traffic is prioritized, here I'll just take Vimeo for instance. Instead of actually limiting that traffic, now you can set a DSCP tag or even a priority, so for high priority for this type of traffic instead of limiting it. Good point.
That's it.
Excellent. All right, so let's see, something that we talked about a little bit already, the bandwidth consumption being a little more transparent now, so you can actually teach everyone how they're using the bandwidth and help to limit, YouTube traffic or iTunes traffic, so that all of the school critical traffic actually gets priority. And so we've actually kind of gone through this already. All right, so and we've also talked a little bit about content filtering, but can you talk a little bit more about exactly what content you're filtering, what type of rules you're putting in place, specifically for SIPA compliance?
Certainly all of our schools apply for and get E-rate. And as you know, part of the agreement for E-rate is that they are SIPA compliant and make a best effort to block inappropriate sites, obviously pornography and that sort of thing, which we found that to be very successful in doing that. We find that it's been successful as far as the proxies and the ways that so many, as you well know, students have a real excellent track record of getting around whatever you put between them and wherever they want to go. So we feel like we've done a better job of being able to block those inappropriate sites and that sort of thing. Probably not so much because we block them, but because students, they know that we can figure out who they are. We can tell exactly, and we have documentation on who they are and where they went, especially with the Active Directory linking that we have as well. So it's been a good result for that. Certainly one of those things that you hate to have to do, but the reality of life is we got to do it. So we might as well do as good a job as we can with it.
Absolutely, that's excellent. Thanks for going into a little more detail there. We got a question in from someone on the line about Apple TV integration. Is that an ask that some of the schools request for you for supporting, or maybe not?
Are we talking about on the wireless side, like the Bonjour Gateway, that piece
Uh,
of it?
Either one. So yeah, when we have Bonjour on the Bonjour forwarding available on the wireless as well as the MX security appliance, but either one, that request might not make its way up to the MX.
I believe we have had one school that uses quite a few Apple TVs, and that was one of the features they were excited about. But I haven't been involved with them on finding out if it helps that situation or not,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I'll
But
just
maybe with a little more detail, we could
yeah.
see what we could do to figure that out.
Um, yeah, I'll just briefly show it here for those people curious on the line. The security appliance and the uh, wireless solution has a Bonjour forwarding option. So basically, Apple TV would use AirPlay, and so here you would actually enter uh, the VLANs that are using that Bonjour or experience have the Bonjour traffic on it. So here we could select our fourth floor VoIP traffic, for instance, and then exactly who is going to be using the AirPlay services if it's on a different VLAN. And so because Bonjour traffic is multicast traffic, the MX security appliance will listen for that specific type of traffic. And here we can select AirPlay and have it forwarded over to the service VLAN. So yeah, very easy to implement with the security appliance and with the wireless solution. All right, definitely keep those questions coming in. We're happy to address any of them here. So I wanted to just briefly summarize some of the features that we've talked about. One is definitely allowing for that redundant uplink connection for those users, as well as taking advantage of that deep transparency that you're able to get into the network and actually helping the schools understand how they're using the bandwidth and help them more effectively utilize limited bandwidth in some cases. And so, uh, Clint and Mike, is there anything that we might have missed or any other anecdotes you want to point out before we wrap up? And also, anyone that on the line might have any questions, definitely throw those over. We're happy to answer those as well.
I would just say, I remember in seventh grade, our teacher stood up and told in our computer applications class and told us that computers were going to make our lives easier and that we would probably go to a 4-day work week in the future and all these wonderful things. And so that was exciting to me. But I really can't think of any device um, until what Meraki's done on us that's come true. Everything seems to be more work and doing more with less. But this is the one thing that has actually made us more efficient and more effective, and not just for us, but also for our districts. And we were able to distribute the workload instead of just 2 guys working on it to up to 28 different people, or 30. And that's the biggest thing I would say is it definitely makes life easier.
That's great. Thanks so much for that feedback. We're getting a couple questions here, so I want to maybe see if we could have you guys answer those. A question is about WAN optimization. Are you taking advantage of the WAN optimization that's built into the MX security appliances?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, maybe in the future. Another question about the content filtering. Someone had asked if it's actually provided by the MX, and maybe this is my mistake here. I maybe didn't show this in the security appliance dashboard page, but here if we go to security appliance and then content filtering, yes, absolutely, the content filtering is done directly at the MX. So the MX or Cisco Meraki partners with BrightCloud, so we use BrightCloud's content filtering database. I guess it's WebRoot now, but here we have basically various categories that you can choose from within this database. So you can just select any of the categories listed here, and those will be automatically blocked. You can also block specific URLs or whitelist URLs here as well. And so we also have integrated with YouTube for Schools, so you can enable or disable YouTube for Schools specifically. And so this is basically the content filtering overview page. I don't know if Clint or Mike, if you have anything else to add about how you are using the content filtering.
I will say we spend a lot less time managing the content filtering. It does a really good job of blocking those things that ought to be blocked. And it's so easy to whitelist that our end users are able, those that we give access to, are able to go in and do that. So certainly there are those that we continue to spend time with in whitelisting their sites for them. But I think that's been a real time saver for us as well. And the local districts like it because they've got more control over their own network.
Absolutely. That's great. Let's see, I have several other questions here. I'm trying to pick out some that Olivia hasn't answered. A question about, for you, Mike and Clint, if you have just MX security appliances or do you also have wireless in your environment?
We actually have both. We started with the wireless, and from the wireless, noticed that you guys had the MX appliance also, and then contacted Meraki about that. That started the trial process.
Great. Let's see. A question about maybe this specific person has a district with 4 schools with Cisco switches. Would they need just one MX security appliance, or do they need one at every site? So maybe you guys could speak to this because you're previously doing centralized, but then now you move to an MX at every site. So I guess it could be either way depending on how
Right.
what their deployment is like.
I would say that if all of your schools go back to one site and then go out to the internet, then you could probably use one, and you can set up the VLANs or whatever you need within the appliance. But if you had different ISPs connecting at all of your different sites, then you could actually put one at each site and set up the site-to-site VPN, and that works really well also. We've had some schools do that. And so it could basically bring everything together for you if you wanted it to do that.
Great. Let's see. A question about when Safe Search is enabled, does it affect any of the other Google services? I've not heard any issues. I don't know about you guys, Mike and Clint.
Safe search, no, but the encrypted search, Google forces everything back over to encrypted search, and so that has been an issue, but we don't have the encrypted search turned on.
Okay, cool. Question about, does Cisco have plans to partner with TechSoup? Not from my knowledge at this point. Let's see. A question about, does Cisco Meraki manage mobile devices as well? Absolutely, we have a product called Systems Manager for managing those actual end clients as well. And do you guys have any experience with Systems Manager, Mike or Clint? Or have you played with that at all?
Yes, we run I'd say 30 or 40 iPads through it, and it works. I've also worked with Jamf. I would say probably the Meraki management is a little bit easier to implement, but I mean, yeah, um, it works pretty well.
Great. Also, the Systems Manager solution is free, so there's also that going for it.
Yeah, the price is right.
Let's see, a couple other questions up here. Are your switches 10 gigabit? We have 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit switches. Another question about, does Systems Manager work with Chromebooks? And yes, it does. All right, so as you guys answer a couple more questions, I'm going to take a second to just give a brief overview of some of the other products, and maybe Mike and Clint can hang on the line here if we have any uh, other questions at the end of the session that we can answer for the entire group. So just a brief overview of the products that we've talked about today, and we did actually get around to talking about almost all of them. We did briefly touch on our wireless products, and we have various models from indoor to outdoor 802.11n and as well as 802.11ac access points. And these devices are very feature rich. They have the application traffic shaping we looked at, as well as the layer 7 firewall and traffic shaping and layer 3 and layer 7 firewall abilities, as well as every type of enterprise security, you know, 802.1x authentication, as well as customizable splash pages and built-in wireless intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. We also have our MX security appliances. So we've spent a lot of time talking about these today, but I almost think of the security appliance as sort of a UTM type box because it does so many things all in one: WAN optimization, content filtering, as well as firewall that we've spent a lot of time talking about. But they also have intrusion detection and prevention built in with Snort, and also a site-to-site VPN. And actually, Mike and Clint, are you taking advantage of the VPN back to your own environment?
Yes, we use the site-to-site and the client VPN as well.
Great. Yeah, that's one of my favorite features, and I realized I didn't show that page either, but it's so easy to set up if you just go to Security Appliance and then Site-to-Site VPN. This is going to create a layer 3 IPsec tunnel. And here you'd simply select if you want a split tunnel or full tunnel. So for those of you who'd be having a centralized content filter, that one specific deployment we talked about, you'd probably want to do a full tunnel, but split tunnel would send just traffic destined for those local subnets across the VPN, and everything else would go directly out to the internet. And then here you'd select the topology if you want a mesh VPN topology or hub and spoke. And then here this is automatically going to import all of the local networks that you've defined on these MX. And you can decide if you want to advertise those or not across the VPN. So once that's set up, you just go to the VPN status. And here we can see an overview of all of the different sites that this one security appliance is connected to. So here we're connected to our Sydney office, and here is the round trip latency. So just a summary of exactly the VPN status. So very cool tool, very easy to set up and keep up as well. All right, also we have switches. We probably talked the least about these, but we have 8-port, 24-port, 48-port. We also have a 10 gigabit aggregation switch as well, and these have some pretty cool functionality for switches. They have the same layer 7 application visibility that the wireless access points and security appliances have, but on a port level, and that's pretty unique for a switch. They also have a feature called virtual stacking that allows you to make configuration changes across multiple switches at the same time, and also PoE or PoE plus optional on all of the different switch models. And the last one here, Systems Manager. We talked briefly about managing mobile devices, and Systems Manager is available for iOS, Android, Mac, PC, and also most recently Chromebooks. And it's 100% free, so I encourage you to check it out. You simply can just go to Meraki.com. There we go. And if you go to Products and Mobile Device Management, here you will click Get Started Now. You'll just enter your information and literally you'll get dropped right into your own blank dashboard page where you can start adding devices. But instead of adding hardware devices, you'll be adding those end client devices. So I use this at home for managing my iPhones and my mobile devices as well. All right. So I wanted to also point out that we do free trials. So if you've seen a product that you think might be a good fit for your environment, definitely let us know. We would be happy to send you out a trial unit of that device, and we do free shipping both ways, so it's no risk at all to try. Okay, question about will the session be recorded? Yes, you'll be able to access this on the Meraki webinar site. Here we go. At the bottom of the page, here's a list of all of the previous recordings. And so you can actually watch any of these as well as this one. And I also want to point out a couple of resources for those on the line. One is docs.meraki.com. This is a link to all of our documentation so that you can get more information on configuring our wireless security appliance switches or systems manager products. And then the last one, kb.meraki.com. This is our knowledge base. And here you can search for anything at all. Maybe you want to know about client VPN, and we'll talk about those corner cases that might not be in the regular documentation. What happens if you want to set up a client VPN to a Chromebook? And here we'll show you exactly how to do that specific configuration. So there's some great resources out there. All right, I'm going to see if there are any other questions. Okay, I think we've answered almost all of them. There is one question about identifying the Active Directory users and computers. Is there an AD agent you need to install? So no, you don't need to install anything on the devices. As soon as they authenticate, we'll just be able to recognize that device if it's 802.1x authentication, for instance. Is that how you guys are using the authentication, just based on the layer 7 client fingerprinting?
Yes, it works as far as we trialed a bunch of different appliances, and it was the easiest to implement of any of them. The only we had was in 2003 servers. Um, you need a certificate, a self-signed certificate set up for it to encrypted connection between the appliance and the Active Directory server. But after that's set up, it works flawlessly.
Great. All right, thank you so much. Thanks so much for answering all of the questions. There were some really great questions, so thank you for those, and thanks for taking the time and sharing your experience with us. All right, so at this time, I guess we're going to go ahead and close out. So Mike and Clint, thanks again, and thanks for using Meraki.